Hello, everybody. First of all, I'm sorry for being late. It's Laura's fault and not mine. No, I was
100%
just
my fault.
I was just furiously apologizing because I was filming a video, completely lost track of time. I looked over, it was 1 o'clock, and I was like, oh, I'm not even slightly ready.
It's okay.
How are you doing? We just went
I'm
straight
good.
to live. So how are you?
I'm good. I just finished a book and now I'm ready to start our projections book. Which I took the cover off of mine because I
Yeah.
actually really hate the feeling of it, like so much.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, I don't like that waxy
Yeah.
kind of feel. So I'm gonna
See,
just read it like
I
this.
usually take the cover off of hardbacks, but I
Mhm.
don't like the feeling of the underbelly of this one.
I don't like a lot of it, Murphy. I just don't.
It's already
Well,
0
I'm
stars.
curious to see how I feel about the book itself. I will say I read the first page last night just to kind of see like what we were jumping into, and I was like, okay. So I'm curious
Wait, did
what
you
we're
did you say you read the last page? Is that what you just said?
the first page. No, no,
Okay,
no.
well, that's a lot better. I used to do
No.
that when I was in
Oh,
middle
did you?
school. I would always read the last page first and then go
Yeah.
back. Did you ever do that?
I've done it once or twice. My mom does it.
She does it.
Um, yeah, and I would do it in books that didn't really have they weren't a series, it was a standalone thing. So if
Yeah.
it had no implications for a
Oh,
later
yeah.
book, I was like, okay, that's fine. But if it was a book series where I was like, oh, a character could die in this or that would be really traumatic, I didn't want to know
That's
until
a
I
really
got to
good
that
point.
part of the book.
I don't think
But
I ever used to read very many series. I usually read standalones, so that never even crossed my mind.
the big one I think for me was Harry Potter because that was the series that kind of I aged with. So when I was reading those, I know a lot of people were kind of skimming through the books and being like, "Hey, booktube bestie, we're
Hey, you can't come on my channel and call someone else your booktube bestie.
he is my 2023
Get out
class
of here.
booktube bestie."
Get out
Uh,
of here. I don't even care that we just met. I'm your bestie. Hey,
Murphy
Christopher.
and I are besties now. That is true. But yeah, no, I know a lot of people used to skim through like Harry Potter and stuff and be like, "Oh, does so and so live?" And I always wanted to get there. Oh, Wild Ascension is so good. I hope you love it. It's the
We are
best of the
fans.
OG trilogy, in my opinion.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yes.
Big time. We've
So
talked about this.
yes, it's our hot take for Mistborn.
It is. It is. It's so funny
Yeah.
the reactions you get from that. You can have
Hmm.
multiple besties. Hey, let's not no. No. Right now, I'm
Just
just trying to be
just
mad.
just this. There is only room for one, and it is the one and only.
That's right. That's right. It's whoever you're talking to at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what book did you say you finished today?
I finished Heir of Fire, which is the fourth book in the Throne of Glass series, which I know is a series that you've DNF'd, so I am not going to say too much about it.
No, but did you like it?
It's the best book in that series by far. The first three I really struggled with at points. I was like, okay, like what are we doing here?
Yeah.
But I was told that it gets good 4 books in. And I was like, okay,
I
I'm
was
gonna
told that
continue
too when
they're
I was
fast.
reading through it.
Yeah, because they're fast reads. They don't take very long. So that one though, I genuinely did enjoy. So I'm happy to jump into the next one now and see where things are going. It's starting to feel more like an epic fantasy series as of
Mhm.
this point in the story, as opposed to it being almost serialized
Mhm.
and then having some threads that carry through into the next book. Now, this book, I'm like, oh no, the ramifications of the end of this book are probably setting up for the next 4 books. So
Nice.
there's a lot of stuff at play, but yeah, it was fun.
Well, good. I'm
Yeah.
glad. I think I read the first 2 books in the Throne
Mhm.
of Glass series, and then I started book 3, and then I quit. I
So,
just
did you read it in the printed order or in the potential read order? Because you can start with Throne of Glass or Assassin's Blade, and I've been
Right.
told that really can dictate how you feel about it.
I started with Throne of Glass.
Okay, I
So
started
it
with
was
Assassin's Blade.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know that one of my biggest complaints about that book was Selena loved to talk herself up and then
Yes.
do nothing.
Yes.
Like, that is such a pet peeve of mine as a reader when an
Same.
auth when a character will never stop hyping themselves
Yep.
and talking about how they could take on anyone in the world and they could do all these things and wow, I'm so wonderful. But then on page, they eat some chocolates left by their bed in the middle
I
of the night
know.
by someone in the middle of an
Yeah,
assassin competition where people are killing each other and they're like, this is fine. I'll just
it's
eat this.
totally
I'm
fine.
super smart.
Exactly. So the Assassin's Blade is technically, I think, the third published book, but it's the prequel
Oh.
of mini episodes that lead into the Throne of
Assassin's
Glass
Blade is?
story. Yes.
Right. Okay, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one I didn't read.
And I'm actually really happy I read it in that order because of all the books, I think it's the worst one, but it gives so much context to Throne of Glass of why she's acting the way that she is. I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. And had I not read it in that order, I probably would have also just been like, I'm bouncing. This is terrible.
Okay,
Uh,
but did
so
Sarah J. Maas write this in retrospect because she realized how bad she fumbled, and so she was like, "Wait, no, she's cool."
maybe. And that's the thing. I'm like, I don't have to live through that experience because I didn't read it that way. So it works for me.
Smart.
But I get other people not being super enthralled by that.
I would like it to be known that I have read A Court of Thorns and Roses,
And
cover to
she did
cover,
not
read the
love it the
whole
way that
thing.
I do.
No, I did not. Oh, I have thoughts about that book too. Hey, BookTube bestie. Oh, sorry, I meant to send this to someone else. Thanks, Simon.
They meant to send it
Dagon
to Christopher
Simon.
Navo. That's
What's
what
that?
they meant to send it to Christopher Navo, but
I
that's
think you're
fine.
right. I think it was meant to go to Simon's on my Discord, so I know Simon. But ah!
What have you been reading?
I am probably here in the next day or two, probably like 2 or 3 days. I'll be finishing Reaper's Gale, which is a
Okay.
Malazan book.
How are you liking it so far?
It is very, very good, in that it feels like a lot of things have come together really, really well in this book, but
Yeah.
also it's like you're anticipating, you're waiting for something, and it's like, like,
Yeah. It's like, give it to me.
so I don't know. I need to finish it to decide how I feel about it, but it's definitely not going to be like on top as far as I rank the Malazan books, but still very good. Like there's loads of good stuff there as well.
And where does that fall in the series? Like, what book is it?
I think it's 8.
Okay, so you're getting through it.
I'm getting through it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
taking me a million years, but I'm getting
I
through
mean,
it.
I feel like that's pretty standard whenever you ask someone how long did it take you to read Malazan, and they're like, "Oh, a
Yeah.
decade."
Yeah, but Jimmy, he just like read them. Like a normal person reads a normal series. He read Malazan.
I know some people do, and
I
it works really great for them. But I think that's the minority from
I
what
think
my experience has been.
I don't even know. I don't even know how you could do it.
Yeah.
Hybrid Helix, halfway through book 4, cool series. Wandering In. I feel like the Wandering In is one that a lot of people are talking about right now.
It's getting quite a bit of hype, The Wandering In, from everything that I have been seeing. So, I'm not surprised.
Yes, it has been getting a lot of hype. It's just so long.
I feel like you can say that about almost any fantasy book, though. You're like, oh yeah.
No. No, it's like imagine if there are 10 published Stormlight books and it's like, "Here, try the first one." And you're like, "What?
I
What?
know. I know. I
It's
mean,
too much."
I tried to convince my husband to read it, and I was like, "This is a losing battle already with like 4 books," and he's a good reader. I was like, "It's just they're each at least 1,000 pages, so settle in." The audiobook is only 56 hours long. It's fine.
Do you find that page count detours you ever at all?
No. No, I mean, the only time I would say that possibly it would is if I've come off of a really long read and I'm still going to then read that other long book. I might just not read them back to back.
Mhm.
But you and I talked about this a little bit. I'm a super binger of series.
Mhm.
So if I'm in, there's no stopping me,
That's
regardless of how
true.
long the pages are. So
I saw you
yeah,
posted your Song of Ice and Fire series, video. I haven't actually watched it yet, but I have it tabbed to watch. Wait,
Song of Ice and Fire.
no, Court of Thorns and Roses, one of those other
Yeah.
series with a really long
Yeah, because I have read Song of Ice and Fire, but I'm
No, I know
actually
you're a
planning.
huge fan of the series, that's probably
I am.
why.
I'm planning on rereading it this year. I actually got Josh the first two illustrated ones for Christmas, and he wants to reread them as well. So I think we might try to buddy read them this year. And maybe
Nice.
I'll bring them onto the channel so he and I can discuss all of our feelings because we haven't read it in probably 10 or 12 years. Like it's been a long time for me at least. I can't really recall how long it's been for Josh, but it hasn't been recent. So
There was
it'll
a
be a
big
good
buddy read that happened last year, people going
yeah.
through it.
Yes, I know Joanna was part of that.
Mhm.
And then I'm blanking on who else was also a part of
I started Brandon's work with The Way of Kings because my friend
cool.
wouldn't stop nagging me and ended up reading all the Stormlight books in 3 months.
Aggro.
Ah, you've got that thing turned on.
I don't know how it does it. It's my phone. So I think it's just my phone getting really excited about Stormlighter. I think it only does it one time though. Like if I sit here and do it again, I don't think it's. Oh no, wait, I'm not. Excellent. That makes me really happy. But yeah, no, I binged the last three of Stormlight. I did Way of Kings, and then I took like an 8-month break, and then did 2, 3, 4 back to back. And I regret nothing. It was delightful because also there's just so much information in those books that it's nice to have it fresh in your brain that you just can go through the story and it's all right there.
That's
But I know
true.
not everyone is like this, and
Mhm.
I have an illness when it
It
comes
ain't
to
me.
binging things.
It ain't me. I gotta take breaks between books. I can't, especially ones that thick. Monty,
Would you do
weren't
that with
you
Gentleman Bastards though too? Would you break between those ones, or would you do those
Nah,
back to back?
I wouldn't need it for that, but
Yeah,
I that's gotta be, like, the only series that
different.
I feel that way about, though.
Yeah. I'm sorry,
Monty,
you were
weren't
gonna say
you
something.
bared I'm sorry. We can
You were gonna say something before I asked about the Gentleman Bastard series, so I wanna make sure that whatever it was you were gonna ask, you were able to ask.
I was just gonna respond to Monty, I'm pretty sure Monty was there, at did you pop in for the Chatting with Nuts last night at all?
I was there for about 5 minutes because my mother-in-law is visiting,
Right.
and I couldn't really get away.
Yeah, very understandable.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Monty was there last night, and there was some Sanderson bashing
I
happening.
did hear that, Sarah does not like him. Like, I
She's
did
not a
hear,
fan
like,
of
that
him,
one
and
little
Jimmy's
blip.
really mixed, and
Yeah.
then the whole chat just exploded with like, "Oh, I don't like Sanderson either," and Bookborn and I were in the chat like, "Oh, we're the minority. I'm not used to this." You're
So
used to,
Alan
like,
must
the
have been
one
thriving
what's
and
that?
found Alan must have just been thriving and found
Oh,
his
he wa
community of
you
people.
you gotta go back and watch that part of the stream and, like, have
Oh,
the
man.
chat pulled up because Alan was celebrating. He's like,
I'm
"My
sure he was just
people!"
frothing at everything that was happening, but I mean, I get that he's not for everybody. Josh is reading Warbreaker right now and isn't loving it, and I'm just crestfallen because I love Warbreaker so much, and I'm like, I just don't think Sanderson is an author for him. But also, I'm just like, all right, we don't all have to love the same things, I
Yeah.
guess.
It's just I think especially in the booktube fantasy space, Brandon is so loved that
Yes.
it's like if you say you don't love him, you're one of the outliers. And
Yeah.
so to be in a chat where it was like a stream of people,
Yeah.
it's like you're just not used to it, which was fine by me. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not I'm
It
not an
was strange.
apologist. I'm fine
That
with
was
people having opinions, but
when
it was
I
just so
joined
uncommon.
BookTube, that was the big thing. It was like, oh, Mistborn is the best new modern fantasy trilogy. Everybody should read it. And it seemed like it was genuinely beloved on BookTube, pretty much like everything Sanderson did. And then Stormlight Archive would always rank in people's top series of all time or be their top series. It was generally that or Wheel of Time or Lord of the Rings. Like those were the top 3 series for most people. They were like, oh, this is the quintessential top tier fantasy. And It was interesting talking to Jimmy when I was doing chatting with us with him, because he was like, I love Stormlight Archive, but I don't really like a lot of other
Yeah.
Sanderson works. And I was like, that's so interesting, just because I've genuinely liked pretty much most of what I've read. I don't love his novellas. I really like Emperor's Soul, but I didn't
Universal
like
is very good.
either of the Stormlight novellas. Like that just, first of all, Dawnshard isn't a novella because it's so long. It's over
Trust
50,000
me,
words.
I've had that rant. I have
Yeah,
said my piece.
yeah, it's not a novella, it's a novel. So that was a whole other thing. But I don't like when you get very key plot in novellas that are bridge books. I just,
Mm,
my brain prefers that it gets included into the actual novel, even if it's an interlude that's a longer interlude, kind of how we get with Lift in Words of Radiance, where it's like a setup thing and it's longer. But I get people not liking Brandon. Like, I don't love
oh
the
yeah.
Sander Lynch. And I know a lot of people get really excited about the Sander Lynch. And I'm like, no, I don't love that about Brandon. I just like his world building. That for me is where the fun is.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but I'll have to go back and watch that chat. Because, yeah, I'm sure Alan was sitting upon his throne,
Oh,
just
it was so
victoriously.
fun. It was so fun. Yeah, it was a blast, really. And throughout the entire stream too, Jimmy kept being like, "Oh yeah, that book sounds interesting," and Alan's like, "We're buddy reading something right now. Stop it."
It's so funny. Alan, if you are listening by any chance now, I've been waiting for him to confirm Buddy reading the Iliad with me, and he has not gotten back to me yet. So I'm waiting.
He'll get back to you one day before he starts.
Yeah, exactly. That'll generally be how it works.
Simon Dinosaur watched your Akatar video.
Thank you.
Do you think you can? Oh, Court of Mist
So
and Fury. That's book 2, right?
it is book 2, and it's so good. I actually ended up re-listening to A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin this past week. So I've now read these books twice in the last 2 weeks. I
Hey,
love them so much. I love them.
all the power to you.
I'm a convert. Listen, I realize it's not for everybody. It's just that the first book is such a fairy tale retelling, and the second book I feel is where the story actually really starts. So it's not for everybody, and I know that, but I love it.
I'm happy that you love it.
Thank you. I'm happy that other people are embracing me being in my new era, and they want nothing to do with it.
I will watch you love it from afar, but I
I am
promise you
so happy
it's
with
not
that.
for
That is
me.
enough for me. That's all I'm asking. That's it. We can still be best friends, and
Exactly. We can still kick Christopher to the curb and you and I be
yeah.
besties.
Oh, Christopher.
Actually, I did text Alan after he mentioned it in his TBR video and asked him to let me know when the Long Price Quartet read along is going to be because I planned on reading it. So, is Christopher hosting this?
I think it's a joint thing between him and Alan. I don't know if it's been decided. Yes, Christopher, you are still here. I don't know if it's been decided whose channel it's going to be on, or if they're going to go back and forth from book to book. But those books aren't really that long, so I was
Mhm.
also thinking I might read along as they do that, because I got Josh's mom to buy him book 1 for Christmas because I had already got him a ton of books. So we have book 1 in our house waiting
Okay.
to be read. But
Okay. Smart.
yeah,
Having his mom get it for him for Christmas so you can read it.
this is the benefit of having a partner that also reads fantasy. And I mean, it kind of ends now if my thing becomes romantasy, because he'll never read that. But the other parts of fantasy we can share. So that's
There we
really
go.
good.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I plan on joining this, Christopher, whenever y'all get around to doing it. Daniel, I too would like to know when.
I think it's
Because
starting in March, or is it not confirmed yet?
not confirmed yet.
Did he say March in his video? Because Alan likes to make announcements like that, and then like 6 months later things happen. So I
That's
don't
fine.
know.
That's fine. I just know that I was planning on reading it this year anyway. So if there are people to read with, then
Mhm.
I'll follow along. Y'all's read along, and
Have you
and
read
I'll read
any
it
of
too.
his stuff?
Remind me who the author is.
Daniel Abraham.
Nope, I've never read any of his stuff.
I have not either. But my husband is obsessed with the Expanse series that he wrote. Or
Oh,
wrote. So
oh, and then I've read one book because I did
there
read
you
the
go.
first Expanse book.
Yeah. I have not read any of the Expanse books, but Josh has read them all and he loved them. So that's,
Yeah,
I
very
also
well
got
done.
him the Dagger and Coin series because he wanted that one, which is also by him. And I know Tori really loves that one. That's one of her favorites. So lots of Daniel Abraham books to be read, apparently.
The author Tchaikovsky, Adrian Tchaikovsky, is another crazy prolific author that I'm recently just started getting into his stuff.
I haven't
And
read anything by him yet.
I feel like I have a forever long list of books to read now that I'm
Yeah.
interested in his work.
That is so fun though. That's how I felt with Sanderson last year when I discovered that I actually really liked him. And I was like, oh great. And then just breezed through the Cosmere.
Yeah,
And I was
see, but I'm not a binger, so I can't
no,
just
exactly.
spend a whole year
This is
reading
my
one author.
problem. But other people do not have this problem. This is 100% a me problem. And it works for me. But yeah, I just glom on to an author and series and I'm like gonna read all of it. But yeah.
So, projections. We haven't actually told people we're both reading the same book. I was on your channel last week, was it?
About that, yeah.
Okay. And I impulsively convinced you to purchase this book and read it with me.
It didn't take much convincing. Let's be real. You were like, "Hey, do you want to read this?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great."
You're like, don't tell me what it's about. I've ordered it.
No, I did not need to know, but I will say when I saw the cover, which is this gorgeous, gorgeous cover, I was like, "What on earth are we reading?" So,
Same.
yep.
No, so this is a new release. It was just released this week. And when I saw it, because I'm trying to keep up with new releases now, which is hard to
hard.
do because there's so
Yeah.
many.
Yeah.
And when I saw it, I was like, okay, well, I need to know. And then it's described as gothic. It has the tag gothic. I love a good gothic tale.
I do too.
But, and then it's like there's elements of it that sound like, okay, I could potentially love this. But then there's other elements that I'm like, or I could potentially despise it.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. When you told me the premise, I was like, I'm either going to really love or detest this book. There is not going to be much middle ground, I feel like, in this story.
Exactly. It's like it's either like I love a good toxic book as long as it's intentionally toxic.
Correct.
But if it's like toxic romantic, like I don't know, A Court of Thorns and Roses, then I'm like,
See, that's the thing. Everyone agrees that that is a toxic book, Murphy. It's in book 2 when it becomes less toxic. That's when it's good.
I need to send you a boxer so that we can talk spoilers because I refuse to read book 2 because I don't want to see Rhysand become a romantic person.
Oh,
like
so
I'm not
good.
interested.
I love him so much. Honestly,
I'm not interested.
I am so heavily invested in Rhysand, but you and I can talk about this off screen because
We'll talk about it off screen.
I love him.
We will have some Voxer rants from me and gushes from you.
This book, apparently, so the name that the author is using for this one is Essie Porter, and in her other work, she has been Sarah Porter. So her other works have all been YA novels, and this is her first foray into adult fantasy, which I always find is interesting. Leigh Bardugo, I would say, is probably the only other one that I can super compare that to. Like, I haven't read any of her work previous, so I can't
don't
make
think I have either. And that was one of the reasons why I was like, ooh, I don't know if I'll like this because if you're going from YA to adult, how's that transition going to be? How are you going to manage? And if it's a gothic tale, then I expect a lot of melodrama. And I love melodrama, but I don't love angst.
No, I don't like angst. No, angst feels a little too YA. So I feel like that's the fine line that you're walking, which is so interesting. Rhysand is the best.
I think Simon's gonna stop following me. Simon and I are pals, but we might lose each other after this one.
But I just find it so fascinating when authors can do YA and adult fantasy and do both successfully. Just because I feel like a lot of the time when you start as a YA fantasy author, it's really hard to then be taken seriously as an adult fantasy author because people often are just comparing it to your previous work. And I know this was a big thing for Leigh Bardugo because she came out with the Grisha trilogy first and then came out with like Ninth House or whatever it was called last year or 2 years ago. And people were like, how am I supposed to read this? Is it supposed
Mhm.
to be YA? Is it adult? And she proved that she could do well in both fields and arenas. But it's just such an interesting conversation when authors decide to shift gears and how it's perceived generally.
I agree, and I think there are a lot of authors that do that. Like, I know Neil Gaiman writes for any and every age
Yes.
range.
Yes. Starts from literally like the womb until you die. They're
Yeah,
all covered by Neil.
yeah. There's picture books. I have Neil
Yeah.
Gaiman picture books that I read to
I
my
do too.
children.
Yep. I
Yeah,
love them.
yeah, and then he's got middle grade YA, like,
Yeah.
he runs the gambit. He writes everything. He writes
Mhm.
I think he's written every book. I don't think there are other authors. I think it's only Neil Gaiman.
It's only Neil Gaiman and this one book, Projections. There are no other books in the history of the world. That's it. I'm actually going to see him again. I saw him in 2017, and I'm going to see him again in July. Neil Gaiman. I'm so excited. I got
What are you gonna see him for? What are you doing?
He occasionally goes to this venue in Virginia and just talks and reads, and it is perfection, and I love it. And the last time I was there, I cried because I was so overwhelmed. I assume that I will probably do the same thing again.
That's
But
amazing.
yeah,
I think
I love
he's someone that I could listen to talk all day.
Yes. He has one of those voices. Like when he narrates his own audiobooks, I'm so there for it just because his voice is so sultry and soothing. I'm just like, oh, Neil, put me to sleep. Put me to sleep, Neil. But also keep me awake because all I want to do is listen to you speak. It's so good. So yeah, I love him very, very deeply.
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
completely agree. And it's funny because I've heard multiple audiobooks where the authors narrated their own book, and generally I notice, and sometimes they do fine, like,
yeah.
the Wayward Children series. I know the author narrates those. I'm not a huge fan of, but, she does fine.
Mhm.
And then, I just listened to a Tchaikovsky book that he narrated, and I think that he did fine, but the production was very poor, in my
Mm.
opinion. Like, a lot of mouth noises or, like, gasps that should have been edited out and,
Cut
like,
it
things
out.
like that.
Yeah.
But Neil Gaiman,
He's
just
top tier.
I guess you could be an audiobook narrator too if you ever decide
Yeah.
to stop writing.
He is unstoppable. Like really. He just does everything
Unbelievable.
and it's perfection. I mean, I don't love every book that he's ever written and think, oh, this is the greatest book that I've ever read.
Mhm.
But generally, whenever Neil does something, I'm like, I know I'm going to love part of it, or something about it. And he's just, ugh, I love him. I love him so much. I don't know if I
Yeah.
told you, but I've declared this on my channel a few times because it's like a weird thing of pride for me, even though it shouldn't be. I wrote him around Thanksgiving and I was like, listen, I would really love for you to come and talk to me on my channel because I have so many things that I would love to talk to you about. And it says on his website, he's like, do not expect a response from Neil. He gets so many
Understandable.
emails a day. He actually wrote me back, and I was so honored and privileged. He said no, but in like the nicest way possible.
But he said something.
He said something to me, to which I ran up to Josh and I was like, I need to print it and frame it. Like, print this projection.
Look at my rejection. I got rejection.
Exactly, and have it on my shelf of Neil Gaiman books because I basically have a whole shelf dedicated to Neil. And I was like, this is, just the pinnacle of my life.
You should.
So,
You should frame it. I think framing
I
a
know.
rejection sounds hilarious.
I know. So Josh and I have joked now every year at Thanksgiving, I'm going to write him and be like, what about this year?
One day you're just gonna get a reply from him. Please stop emailing me.
Please stop emailing me. And then that will be framed next to the original rejection.
You'll
And
just
that'll
have a
be, you know,
series of framed rejections, and then eventually you'll frame the restraining order. It'll
so
be the perfect story.
exactly. So all in all, it was a highlight of my 2023 for sure.
That's amazing. I love that. I think it's probably easier to establish yourself as an adult author than go younger. If you try to transition from middle grade or YA to adult, you might face more skepticism.
I completely agree with that. I feel
I
like
always
there's that, right?
No. So what happened with Mistborn is it was always supposed to be I don't know what it was supposed to be. I won't speak on that actually, but it ended up getting published I think originally as adult and then rebranded as
Why?
YA. just
Right, but I
to
don't mean Mistborn. I
oh,
mean,
sorry.
Skyward series. Like, he started as an adult fantasy author and then started doing other YA
That's true. He
series.
did Mistborn was originally adult, but
Yeah,
then it
and a
got
lot of it
marketed for YA
were
as well, and
yeah,
then he runs the gambit too because he also has middle grade series.
yes. So, I agree,
I
though.
think
I do think it's
yeah.
easier if you start out adult and then you're like, "Oh, maybe I'll do YA." But I
Yeah,
think
that's
also
true because
go ahead.
YA is looked down on by a lot of
Yeah,
people, and
yeah,
so if you're going from YA to adult, then people will question you, kind of like what we just did, question you,
yeah,
like, "Are you gonna do it? Are you gonna be able to
yeah,
do it?"
yeah.
Um,
Can you pull it off?
whereas if you're adult and then you do YA, then it's like, "This will probably be fine."
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Which is unfortunate. Like, I try to check myself on that bias now a lot of the time. I'm like, "Oh, be less judgy."
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
"Oh,
but
we're giving her a shot, eh?"
exactly,
That's
exactly. We
something.
are in, this weirdly covered book. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Weirdly covered book.
Yeah, this cover is just weird. I
You think
don't
it's
like
weird?
it.
Oh,
Oh,
you don't like it? I thought you called it beautiful. I thought
I
you were
was
being
being
beautiful.
highly sarcastic.
Oh, I love
Uh,
this cover.
do you? I don't.
Why? Tell me why. What has it done to
Okay.
you?
First of all, it really comes down to the texture of this cover. I hate it. I just don't like it, Murphy. But I feel like
Okay,
that's
well, I'm
mostly
sorry it
my
feels bad to
opinion.
your fingers. What don't you like about this cover?
I don't know. I'm gonna hold off saying anything until I read it, and then because I might feel differently once I've read it. Because there's a lot of covers that I've looked at and I've been like, okay, and then I've read the story and I'm like, okay, you know, and I feel differently about it afterwards. But I try not to be someone that judges a book by the cover. I think I told you when we were chatting, I didn't read anything about any of the books I read last year. I just went in completely blind. Like, I didn't look at
Yes.
covers or blurbs at
You didn't look
all.
at covers. How does that even
No.
work?
I mean, I just looked up a book, ordered it, and that was it. Like, I didn't even take time to actually look at it. The only book covers that I genuinely looked at were the special edition Sanderson ones because I really wanted those because they looked really nice. But other than that, I didn't even bother really looking at covers until I had read a book. So,
How did you know what to read then?
well, because I would see people talking about it on YouTube, and I was like, okay, that sounds
Ah,
interesting. And then I
you
joined a
trust people's
fantasy group.
recommendation
I did.
completely.
And then I joined a fantasy group on Facebook, which has like a few 100,000 people in it, I think. And I put out a PSA the December before I started my channel because I was really hitting a wall what to get Josh for Christmas in terms of books. And I said, this is what he really likes, and this is what he has not liked. Give me your recommendations. And people
Risky.
just sent me a ton of stuff, which was awesome. And I ended up getting him, I think, 6 or 7 out of the mass number that were sent to me. And I just didn't really think about it, just like ordered them. And then that kind of started us into some new authors and series because Blade itself was one of the books that I got him. And he read all of them initially and then was like, you're really going to like this. And I loved it. I got him Lions of Albersan by Guy Gabriel Kay, which he ended up loving. It's his second favorite book of all time, he says. So I then read that. So it ended up being like I bought him a bunch of books that I just ended up reading. And
Nice.
then I just then fell down my Sanderson wormhole and I read all of those. But yeah, I didn't really bother looking at covers, so I don't know.
That's scary.
Yeah, a little
I
bit.
think when I first found BookTube, I did a lot of that where whatever people were talking about, I was just like, okay, yes, I'm reading. That's how I ended up reading Court of Thorns and Roses, is because everybody was talking about that. And so I was like,
Sure.
okay, I'm reading. And I was like, no.
I will scold again.
That's also how I read 9 Kiera Cass books. 9.
That's a
Because
lot.
people kept telling me, wait until you get to the Clockwork series. Wait until you get to the Clockwork series. So I read 6 books to get to the Clockwork series. Finally got to it. Hated it. And people said, no, it's the final book in the Clockwork trilogy. That's amazing. It's the final one. So I
So
read
you have to read 9 books for one good book.
and I hated it. I hated
That's
the book.
awful. I would
I
never do that.
hated it.
Never. No. Can't convince me to do that. If it's
Well,
not
I
good,
was
if it's
young
the
and
first 2
naive.
books or 3 books, I'm out. Like, that's it.
And no shade to people. Finally, my golly, no shade to people who actually love Kiera Cass or A Song of Ice and Fire. Ah, dadgummit, A Court of Thorns and Roses, or any romantasy book. I have a cold, dead heart. That's on me, not on you. I got this art piece made, which I used last time I did sprints. And I finally got a timer on it so we can actually have a countdown on the screen. And then I added some like chill lo-fi music. I made a thing of it. I did a thing about it.
For it.
And it has been exporting. It's only a 30-minute video. It has been exporting for an hour and a half.
Oh geez, that's always the worst.
I don't know what I did. Is my computer just suddenly done working for me? Or did I just mess up the export settings? It's finally done exporting. My goodness.
Man. To the person in chat, Kagi, I read Fourth Wing and loved it. It was a great time and total brain candy.
Also, Simon Dinosaur says that Sanderson needs to remarket Mistborn as romantasy. How do you think that'll work out for him?
But I'm good with it being what it is.
Is that just going to be the thing now? People are just going to lie about what genre they're writing in.
I am all for it, honestly.
There's no way that could backfire.
None whatsoever. I would love if someone gave a pitch for Dune as being romantasy and not.
Oh my
sci-fi.
gosh. I love it. Hang on. We're gonna do our reading sprint now. We're gonna see. You said you read the first page. How did it go?
I was actually surprised in a good way.
Yes. Surprised about what? About how? About whom?
The prose.
Good, bad?
Good. From the
You
first
did not
page.
check your bias, and you thought this filthy YA writer actually has good prose. Impossible.
It's not that. It's not that. It was more. I'm very much in my Sarah J. Maas era right now. And
Right.
I'm just used to that kind of being the romantasy language. And
Yes.
this does not seem, at least on the first page, to use that type of language. So I'm curious to see how this turns out.
Okay. There we go. I got it, baby.
Gorgeous.
Thank you. I've worked so hard on this, and by that I mean I put so little effort in.
That's kind of how it looks outside my house right now because we got a ton of snow last night and I'm not here for it, but that's fine.
Hey, Gavin's here. Well, we're about to go into a sprint, Gavin. So get your book. Get your book.
Sarah J. Maas era.
Gavin, go get projections right now. Run out to the store and buy it because that's what we're reading today. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Read whatever you want. But we are going to do our first sprint, and it will be for 30 minutes. I'm going to be off camera because I don't like reading on camera.
Same. I find it very awkward for me. Like other people, it's fine, but I just look
Oh, yeah.
awkward.
I have no problem with other people doing it, but I can't actually, my brain can't latch onto the book because I'm just thinking
Correct.
about the camera on me. So I'm just going to
Correct.
be off camera to read.
Sounds good. So 30
All right.
minutes.
30 minutes. Ready?
See ya.
Okay. Oh. Hello. I don't know what's up with my cohort. Oh, hey, Anita. How's it going? Good to see you. We just finished a sprint. Yes, that's true. We neither one care for reading on camera, so we read off camera. Could y'all hear the music? I had some lo-fi music playing that whole time, and it sounded lovely to me, but I never actually heard it coming through the speakers of this computer. So if y'all didn't hear it, I can try to fix that for the next sprint. So let me know if you heard it or not. Hey, Anita. Actually, we're reading the same book right now, and it's Projections. Didn't hear it? Okay, I'll see if I can fix that for the next sprint. Sorry about that. It's a new release. It was released this week. Hey, you're back.
Okay, sorry. My phone fell during sprints, and then it decided that it just wanted to be blurry. That was it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All good. No worries.
And by fell, I mean my cat came up to it and was like, "What's this?" Rubbed it, and then it fell.
Anything a cat can rub against will be rubbed against.
Exactly. So
That's how.
what are you thinking?
I'm digging it. Are you digging it?
Yeah, I am actually. Yeah, I'm a little. How far did you get? I didn't get very far.
I got 24 pages.
Okay, I'm at I think page like 16 or 17.
16 or 17. Yeah, it's a bit there's a lot going on. I mean, not like content wise, I feel like it's fine. It's just the margins are real small.
Yeah. So I also realized while we were sprinting that I was desperately hungry. So I grabbed a snack, and that ate up literally a few minutes of my time.
All good. What was the snack? That's the real question.
I made a caramelized onion flatbread thing. So
okay, that sounds all right.
yeah, it was pretty good.
So when you say I made a snack, you mean like I properly made a snack?
No, it was leftovers. It was leftovers.
Oh, okay.
No. But yeah, I'm curious about this.
Yeah. I was going to read a quote from it just to illustrate kind of the prose and the haunting style and all that, but I don't want to read a quote that you haven't gotten to yet.
Okay.
But I really liked, did you get to the introduction of a projection?
Vaguely, yes.
Hang on. Let me see what that page was. Yeah, it was on page 12. So you've read that page.
Yes.
Yeah. I love the way that was described.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a projection that's happening, telling the audience this. Trying to find. I'll just read this whole. Gus's two hands spread on the dim head and chest. He had always had very long hands relative to his build, bold, blah, 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 blah. Well, I thought I was reading the right section. Maybe not. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. It looked for a moment like a strange glassy paper with the image of a terrified child printed on it, or like a child-shaped balloon of fine silk deflating. I could still see one green dewdrop eye staring directly at me in voiceless longing, as if I were its last hope. Gus wadded it up like a handkerchief and stuffed it in his left trouser pocket. I had a last glimpse of dim fingers clutching at his wrist. Then it was gone. What a fascinating way to describe our first interaction with a projection, right?
Yeah, and it seems like we've got a little bit of time manipulation going on in the story, because I was a little confused by the second chapter. I was like, what's happening? Like, why are we getting a text message here?
Yeah. We definitely started at, so for anybody who is curious, this is a story about a woman who has been killed, and now she's hanging out. Her spirit is hanging out and looking for revenge. So we start out with her spirit. She's been separated from her body. She's dead now. She's looking back. and then we go back to when she's alive, and now we're trying to like start her story.
Hmm.
Is that right? Did I get that right?
I think yes and no, because I think it's going to be two POVs, one of being the projection of
Mm-hmm.
Angus, and then the other being Catherine.
Catherine, right? Yes, that's
Yeah.
true.
And Catherine's she's real dead. So
She's super dead. That's true.
super, super dead, and seems to be tethered through magic to the guy that killed her, who is simultaneously the creator of these projections. So I feel like we're not going to get a POV from him because we shouldn't. And we will probably just get the two POVs from Angus and Catherine.
And each chapter is titled like what she's doing. So it's like, let's see here.
Catherine at home.
Catherine in hiding. Yeah, right. So I guess in my mind, we were going to go back to, the next chapter that I'm going to read is Catherine in the Underworld. So in my mind, we were going to go back to her living, but I guess maybe we're not going to go back to her living. Maybe we're just going to see her dead the whole time.
I think it would make sense that I'm curious because he kind of implies to her that with these projections, you can go back in time, but you can also go forward in time, right? Like there's that like subtle implication. So I don't know if maybe we're going to see projections of Catherine at different points in time, or if that's only going to be an Angus thing.
Yeah, you might be right. I don't know why I'm looking ahead at chapter titles. I just need to let the book happen to me. It's a really fascinating start, though. It's very, I think it's hitting the Gothic vibes really well. It's a very intimate, kind of slow but mysterious start. I'm digging it so far.
Also, I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, are we in a completely made up fantasy world, or are we in a like urban fantasy world? Because there are things from our world that are very much being mentioned in the story. And I'm like, that's interesting. So I'm curious to see how that kind of plays out. Like she mentioned Thucydides, I think, pretty early on. And I was like, well, that's not typically a name that you come across in fantasy. So that's interesting. But also we have Plutarch show up. So I mean there's stuff happening.
There's stuff happening, that's for sure. It's a very interesting start. How many sprints are left? Just got off work. We'll probably do like one more. Do you reckon? Because we said we'd go for about 2 hours. So check in with what everybody's reading, chat for a couple of minutes, and then one more sprint before we finish up.
Yeah.
And we don't even have to do another 30-minute one if you want to do a shorter one next.
I have
so
what's okay.
What's that?
I have childcare today, so it's okay.
Well, still, I want to honor your time. You mentioned around 2 hours.
It's okay.
What's everybody else reading? And are you enjoying it?
For 8 hours.
We're doing audio at the moment, so I wouldn't have appreciated the music anyway. True, fair enough. You can always mute it if I have some audio playing that you don't want to hear. Go for 8 hours. Gavin, I know you do that. That's not the life I'm living.
I mean, I feel like that takes major commitment, and I admire someone being able to do that, but I would get really stir crazy after a few hours.
Amazing. Like he can, he's wild. Getting to the end of Howl's Moving Castle. I'm going to read that this month. I'm excited. Or next month. Excited about it. Have you read that?
I have not.
Have you seen the movie?
I have not. No.
We've got Knife of Dreams, Dragon Ball Z, and The Alchemist. Not Full Metal Alchemist.
The Alchemist. Have you read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho?
Have you?
I did many, many moons ago.
Did you like it?
Very heavy in magical realism. At the time, I really enjoyed it. I'm not sure how I would feel about it going back and rereading it. I read it when I was like 16. So I would be curious. I've seen so much about Nevernight and people just raving about Nevernight. Have you?
I hated it.
Okay. Yeah. I've seen so much of it lately. I'm like, people are all about
Oh, really? Has it gotten like
Yeah.
another wave or something?
I think so. I haven't seen it so much on BookTube, more in Reddit and Facebook groups where people are like, Nevernight. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what it is. So happy that you love it.
When it was first released, it was crazy popular. Like, oh my goodness, people were obsessed with it. It was a big no for me personally. Eyes of the Void book 2? I don't know. Ooh, and a Tchaikovsky
There's a
book.
boy, Tchaikovsky.
Fires of Heaven.
Ooh,
Chess Story?
there you
Ooh,
go.
I loved that. My goodness. Republic
Oh
of
my god.
Thieves. Go.
Someone saying here, Breezaholic, Spirit Cuts Through Water, Evie somewhere just smiled with happiness.
No, she just started screaming into oblivion.
Mm-hmm.
Love people watching me for long periods with Gavin. Do you know Gavin? Have you
I
watched
do
his
not,
channel?
but I feel like we're gonna get to know each other after this
You-
because I'm appreciating all the
You're gonna have to check him out. He's a
Yeah.
wild one. Count of Monte Cristo, let's go.
That's another good one. Haven't read
The
that in a
pace is
long
getting slower. Yeah, you have to get through prison. And then it's like, and then it just takes
time. Then
off.
it's happening. Exactly.
Yeah. Bands of Mourning, continuing my
Go see
Sanderson.
what Jimmy said about Bands of Mourning.
Yeah, he's not a big Era 2 guy.
No, which I mean I don't blame him. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, it's a lot more campy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Do
I
you
have
like
a lot of
Era
issues
2?
with women. What did you
What'd
say?
you say?
I have I said I have a lot of issues with Wayne. I really don't like Wayne.
I didn't like him in book 1. I grew to love him.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you
He's
did. I
actually
did not.
What'd you say?
I'm glad you did. I did not.
I like how in your stream we determined that we're the same person, and in my stream we're opposites in everything.
Yeah, for me the hero of Era 2 is Steris. I love Steris. Some Fierce. I think Steris is great. So and Milan and Jensu. So all the Contra I think are great. But yeah.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Isaac H, I'm trying to look up your channel and I can't find you. You should comment on the video at the end when it's over so I can
I'll discover
subscribe to you.
Yeah.
Flowers for Algernon.
That is such a sad book.
It's such a sad book.
Yeah, Joanna and I did the Finally Fall book tag with each other last year, and one of the questions is like, "What was the saddest book you've ever read?" Before the question was even asked, I was like, "Flowers for Algernon, Flowers for Algernon." Like, there's no question. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be the saddest for me, but boy,
It
it was really
it's a
good
book
though.
that
It's a
I
really
will
good book.
never reread. It's just one of those books that I can't do it.
It's a lot. In the middle of
Yeah,
the Spear Cuts. Oh, you read that one a million years ago.
dude.
Switched by Sarah. Did you write Switched? You're not Sarah. Sarah was yesterday at Jimmy's. I just like had a brain fart. Oh my gosh.
No, I did not write Switched.
Nevernight, but never read book 3. Have to reread the first 2.
Mm.
I never read book 2. 3 books in cycle.
Song for Urban. It's a good one.
Everybody's reading some good books.
Mm-hmm.
Blood of Mercy. Before They're Hanged.
So good. Love Before
That's
They're
something
Hanged.
we can at least agree on.
Yes.
Yay!
Hey, inspiring the people, Murphy.
That's right.
Oh, I
Fucking
love Trust. I love
Trust
Trust so
is
much.
so good.
I love Trust. Oh,
Felt like the
Prison.
easy part. Oh no, you're not liking it after prison?
Then that might not be the book for you.
Yeah, honestly, I agree. If you don't like it
sorry.
after prison, I'm not sure.
Probably not the bird for you.
60% in?
Oh
Aw.
no. I'm sorry. It's not for
Yeah.
everyone. Not for
All the love in
everybody.
the world, but I don't think it's the one.
No. No. Don't put a ring on it.
Reading You Mean the Nightmare Painter?
I liked Yumi not as much as Tress though. Tress was my favorite. I loved Tress.
I love Tress as well. Oh, you don't have a BookTube channel.
Oh, your profile picture makes it look like you have a YouTube channel.
When I see a profile picture of a face holding
With
stacks of
books.
books, I'm
Yeah,
like,
I'm
oh, booktuber. All right, let's go find the channel.
100%. That is exactly how I'm like, oh, they actually have a face? Yes. They probably
Yes,
have a channel.
right. If it's an animated avatar, if it's a cartoon, if it's nothing, whatever. Like, well, mine's a cartoon. But I need to change
That's
mine.
true.
I'm gonna change mine someday. I just don't. There's not very many pictures of myself that I like. But anyway,
No.
it's that's such a BookTube icon.
That is a very BookTube icon. Just joining with the Queen's Gambit. Is the Queen's Gambit what the Netflix show was based off of? Was that a book? 'Cause I didn't know that.
Just joining with the Queen's Gambit. I don't know. Chess Story has those vibes a little bit, but the Queen's Gambit, I think the book it's based off of is called The Queen's Gambit.
That's what I'm saying though. Like I didn't know that there was a book called The Queen's Gambit. I just thought it was a miniseries.
Oh, no, everything was a book first. Are you kidding?
Most things were. Yes, most things were.
How many movies are we getting these days that aren't an adaptation? The thing is just that most of them aren't popularized until they turn into adaptations.
I mean, that's fair. I was thinking about it today as I was listening to my audiobook and I was like, would I want this made into an adaptation? And because I so often lean into that, like, oh, it would be so cool if this was brought to life. But do you ever listen to any of the dramatized audiobooks? Is that something you do?
No.
Okay, so I had never done that until this past week, and I listened to one, and I was like, "Oh, this is like really, I'm into this for this particular book." Because I tested it with Warbreaker, and I hated it because they added so many sound effects that I found it way too distracting.
Mhm.
But it just further reinforced the idea that I was like, "Oh yeah, I would like most things to be adapted. Like I'm that person." So,
I think there are a lot of like, for instance, The Queen's Gambit is one that was adapted, and most people don't know that. Well, I can't speak for most people. A lot of people don't know that it's a book because the book
I did
wasn't
not know.
popularized and because the adaptation was so good.
It
So
was so good. Did you watch it? Because it was
no,
amazing.
no.
No, I know you don't watch a ton of TV, but it was
I'm just going
actually
off of other people's opinions,
no, it really
but
was.
it's well
It was
received.
yeah, it was very well received, and I thought that they did an excellent job with it. So yeah, I'm not at all surprised to learn that that's based on a book. It has
Yeah.
bookish vibes, honestly, when you
Mhm.
watch it. So
And I read, one of the books that I read recently that became a new favorite for me is called Annihilation. That was
yeah,
made into a movie.
you and I talked about
Um,
Annihilation, yeah, a little bit.
yeah, like there's loads of books that have been turned into movies that I think people probably don't realize. I just know that my dad loved The Queen's Gambit, and so I was like, "Well, let's see if it's a book, because chances are it's a book."
Yeah.
And it was, so I got it for him, and he read it.
Rand is saying here that it's from 1983, so that might be why that it's not super current in our pop culture for us knowing that it's a book. But I also just didn't do my research. I will admit that.
Well, you don't have to. You can enjoy something without seeing if it was a book.
I mean, yes, I usually try to do a little bit of research and be like, oh, is this based on something? Like, I usually check, especially if it's fantasy related. I'm like, there's a 95% chance that this is
Is The
been.
Queen's Gambit fantasy related?
No, it's not. But
Oh,
that's why I didn't look because it wasn't fantasy. But anytime it is fantasy, I'm like, oh yeah, it's probably a book first. So you should just always assume though, book first.
mhm.
hmm Did you
Makes
like
sense.
Annihilation, Murphy? Is the
Oh my gosh.
latest question.
Me? Did I like Annihilation?
The last
Yes.
question here by Nikki, it seems like.
Oh, yes. Did you say it's not my March? Do you mean it's on my March TBR? Um, yes. So, oops. Hi. Annihilation was I read book 1 and I think it was on my best of the year list. Like I loved it so much. It became an obsession. So, I'm actually rereading it next week, I think. I plan to reread it this time physically because I listened to the audiobook. So
Oh,
I'm going
did
to
you?
reread it physically and then I'm going to just blitz through the next two and complete the trilogy.
That's Ted Chiang, right? Or is it Ted Chiang?
It's I don't remember what the author's name is. It's like
I'm looking it up.
no, it's not what you said. Hold on.
Annihilation. Jeff Vandermeer.
Jeff Vandermeer. I said it first. You can't prove it. There was a lag.
Who am I thinking of? Arrival. I'm thinking of Arrival.
Oh, yeah, I don't think I've read that one.
Yeah.
Keep reading the Anne of Green Gable books. I honestly forgot I read the first one. I've heard that the movie is really different from the book. So if you like the movie, check out the book. You'll get a different kind of story.
Mhm.
Do the chess pieces move on their own in Queen's Gambit?
No.
Who knows?
Not to my remembering. No, but girlfriend has a strong affinity for alcoholism, so maybe in like her drunk state, she thinks that the pieces are
no.
moving. But
Sad.
yeah, thank you, Daniel. I realized after I said it, Ted Chiang wrote Arrival in his series of short stories. But she part of the whole Queen's Gambit story is her like overcoming alcoholism and kind of just accepting who she is and stuff. So it's a really good miniseries. I'm sure it's a good book too.
I think my dad liked the book. I'm pretty sure he thought it was good.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to read comments here and I'm getting distracted.
I know, me too. Have you read Anne of Green Gables?
I have not, which is a hard thing for my mother to accept because they're one of her favorite series ever. Like she saved all of her original Anne of Green Gables for me to read.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, and I remember, I don't remember what age I was. I think I was probably like 9 when she gave me the first one. I was like, I'm really not into this. Like, I'm just not. And I do plan on reading it like at some point because I loved the movie growing up. I really did like the movie. And I'm from Canada, so I feel like on principle I need to read these books. I'm like, who else is going to talk about Prince Edward Island? No one. It's just I'll get to them eventually. But yeah.
When I read Anne of Green Gables, I got a comment from an angry Canadian saying, I hate those books because now everybody comes to Prince Edward Island looking for an Anne of Green Gables vibe, and they don't find it, and then they're unhappy.
People can complain about anything, right? As opposed to it being good for tourism and Prince Edward Island, it's how dare people love a book and want to come to our place? Rude.
I imagine people who live in like Forks, Washington probably have similar sentiments though. They're just like, these Twilight fans come to my beach
Yeah,
and read their book.
Exactly.
What's that?
Just everybody out. That's what
everybody out. This is not a touristy area. Stop coming here.
Is there any location in terms of a book that you've thought like, oh yeah, I really want to go there and see what it's like after you've read it?
I mean, there's a lot of books that I want to step into.
Right, but like actual real world locations, not fantasy locations. Because fantasy locations, we could be here for a very long time. But
exactly. Yeah. I don't know that. I don't know. I'm such a fantasy nerd. I'm trying to think of the time where I've read a book. Go.
And it's a Neil Gaiman novel. It's in American Gods when they go to House of the Rock. Because that is like all the places in American Gods are real places that it's like this road trip around America. And he goes to this one house and it's super weird. Like the actual house itself is full of just the weirdest stuff. So when I read it, I thought, okay, this sounds super trippy and strange, and looked it up and thought, no, I can see why Neil Gaiman went to this place. Like this is if Neil Gaiman emerged in a building, like this is the building that it would be. And I thought it would just be such a weird place to visit that I thought that would be really fun.
Yeah, that does sound amazing. I think when I read The Secret Garden, I really wanted to experience a place like that. Mm-hmm. Even though I know like there's nothing to visit. I can't go somewhere.
I get it.
But I wanted to be there.
It's almost like a Portal fantasy though, right? Where it's like you
It
just get
was
transported into
so
like an amazing
immersive.
world. Yeah,
Yeah.
I bought a special edition of The Secret Garden a couple months ago. We went to Barnes and Noble and I was like, it's so pretty. I need to buy it.
And then we've been to Puerto Rico twice, and we go
Mhm,
with Corey's cousin each time,
mhm.
and he's a big Treasure Island nerd, and so he's like, "We're on Treasure Island. We're
I
here."
can see that. That's a solid vibe for Treasure Island. Yeah. That's part of your 10-year plan though, right? Like to be near the
To
water
move to Puerto
somewhere.
Rico. Yes, yes, it is.
I'll have to put
We'll
you
see
in
if
touch
it
with one of our
happens.
I'll put you in touch with one of our best friends who grew up in Puerto Rico and then moved to the US, like the mainland US. So you guys can
Yes,
chat about
yes.
it.
I'm trying to learn Spanish because we don't go to the touristy areas when we go to Puerto Rico. We go
Okay.
like off west where it's a
You're
lot
not in San Juan.
quieter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and like good luck if you don't speak Spanish.
Yeah, it's not happening. It's not
So
happening.
I'm trying to learn Spanish so I can go back and I can like be worth
Consistent.
something when I go there instead of
Yeah.
people having to try to understand me when I'm going to their space. That's so rude of me. But
I
I
get
would
it
struggle
completely.
so much
Mhm.
learning another language. But I'm
I
trying.
I get it, honestly. So growing up in Montreal, I had to speak French and English. And it took me, I'm a native English speaker, but it took me a really long time to get the hang of French. I was like, I just don't understand it. Like my brain would look at it and be like, none of this makes sense. And because I decided to pick a really lucrative career of studying ancient Rome when I got to university, and they were like, you also need to know all these dead languages. I was like, cool. When I started learning Latin, I was like, no, this is the worst language I've ever learned. This is so awful. And it was this weird moment of not understanding Latin, but then made me understand French. Like it finally clicked in when I was forced to
Interesting.
study another language. And then since then, with other Romance languages, with Spanish and Italian, I've been able to do fairly decently. Like I'm not conversant by any means, but Josh does Duolingo
Yeah,
every day. He has a 3-year streak going on Duolingo
that's
for Spanish.
amazing.
I was in labor and he was doing Duolingo. Okay. Like, and that's how committed to this he was. And I will listen and I'm like, oh, yeah, I get what they're saying. And like, we did a trip to Italy a few years ago and I did a crash course for myself before we went. And I was like, this makes more sense to me now. So I was told for so many years by some of my professors, they were like, one day it just clicks with language. And yeah, it is barbarian Latin. I mean, that's basically what it is. And especially Quebecois French, it's like a whole other terrible beast. So it's not pretty Parisian French. It's guttural, angry French. Yeah, I mean, all the Romance languages do have Latin roots. So yeah.
That must have been why it helped you then.
Yeah. So I mean, one day it might just click for you, and then you'll be a Spanish master, and then we'll never see you again because you'll be living your best life in Puerto Rico.
Yes, that sounds wonderful. I'll just delete everything and you guys can all just assume, oh, Murphy's gone. Okay, she must be in Puerto Rico, living her
Puerto
best life.
Rico, right? Treasure Islanding it up with her husband's cousin.
That's the
Exactly.
dream. 2025. It's my year. Deleting
2025,
everything. 2025. I'm deleting everything and moving to Puerto Rico.
pretty soon. Not this 10-year plan. Next year plan. We've upgraded.
Well, you got to dream. That way you can be
Yeah,
disappointed.
exactly.
How can you be disappointed if you don't create your own disappointments, right?
Exactly. That's 100% correct. I keep planning all these tentative trips in my brain, and I'm like, oh yeah, we have a toddler. Cool.
Hey, you can still travel with a toddler. We did.
And we are planning on trying pretty soon. We thought about it last year for like this summer. I was like, oh, maybe we'll do an overseas trip. And then we did a mini trip with her last year to see how it went. And I was like, we're not ready. I was like, I don't think I'm emotionally ready. And she's definitely not ready. So we're going to do a few small things
There you go. That's a good way
here.
to do it.
And then next year, I think maybe we'll jump into it. Hopefully.
I think the only way to make your toddler good at travel and adventure is by going on travel and adventure with your toddler.
Exactly.
I'm someone that hates holding still. Like if I'm not busy, if I'm not working, then I need to be adventuring. And so I like my son, before my son, and then once we had my daughter, before either of them wanted to be hiking or adventuring or swimming, had any interest in that, I was like, okay, I strap you on, we go.
Yeah.
Because like I needed them to be adventurers in order to survive in my life.
Yeah.
And now
I
they're
get
both
it.
adventurers. Now they
I get
both
it.
they're amazing travelers. They do incredible on long journeys. When we go hiking and stuff, they like we pack our lunches. They
Yeah.
find lizards to befriend. They go climbing on rocks. Like they are adventurers. So I think a lot of it is just teaching them to love adventure, but that has
Yeah.
to come with some push, as long as you don't
Oh
push
yeah,
them too far.
definitely. She is getting so she's gonna be 2 in a few months. She's getting to that age now where she prefers to be outside, and I'm like, okay, we're slowly getting there because we also really love hiking. And we did our honeymoon years ago was we went to Dartmoor in England, and we just did all of these moors of hiking for a while, and it was perfect, and we loved it, and we want to go back and do like parts of the Scottish Highlands and the Isle of Skye, and we want to do other parts of England. And I'm like, if she likes hiking, we can bring her and it'll be great. So I'm just keep pushing her to like want to be outside and walk around and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, we'll get there. We'll get there. But
Yeah.
she's still little. So
Yeah.
I'm dreaming big for a
You
few
will
years.
get there. You definitely will, especially if you keep exposing her to fun adventures and find ways to make it unique and special.
Yeah.
Like, I don't serve juice at my house. We're water and milk. That's what we do.
We are
So,
too. Yeah,
yeah.
we are the same water and milk people. Yeah.
Yep. So I buy juice. I buy a healthier version of juice. And the only time they get it is on hiking trips.
Yeah.
So they know if we're going hiking, we're getting juice. And it's like, it's a big
Exactly.
deal, and I always pack like monster trucks and stuff. If we pause to have a break, they can play in the river with their monster trucks. And it's like, there's just certain things that I make to make it special so that it's like, oh, we get to do these things. And that's the attachment. But then once they get there, they're exploring the world and they're happy.
Right.
And it's like, they find the wonder in the hike as well.
It's enticing to them too. Yeah, no juice.
I have no doubt in my mind, juice is just a potty training risk. I have no doubt in my mind, Andrew, that you let the juice flow in your home. He is such a chill dad. Like, when I talk to him on Voxer, he's never not got a kid climbing on him. He's always just like, no, you can't eat my toes right now, kid. Okay, no, let's not do that.
Yeah, that's become our big thing right now is like we're either saying what's in your mouth or you can't hit people. Like those are the two things that we're basically like just living in, like no hitting and what's in your mouth. I'm like, cool, we're in that stage, but we're thriving.
We are thriving.
Right.
We are thriving. How old is your little?
She'll be 2 in June, so
Okay.
she's still little.
She's little, yeah.
Yeah, but she's going through this like crazy developmental leap right now where she's starting all these new words, and I'm like, oh, cool, it's true. Oh, Andrew.
I won't expose you right now, Andrew, maybe later, but some of the messages he sends sometimes where he's like, send help, my kid is doing X. And I'm like, how?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I'm like, okay, I have these things waiting ahead of me. And I'm like, we'll get there,
We'll get there.
It'll be fine.
Honestly, mine are 7 and 4, and it's awesome. Like, it's so awesome.
It's like the turning point. Most people I've talked to, they're like, once they hit 4, it's like a new ball game. And I'm like, cool. So
I'm trying to think how it was for my son. Probably around 4, probably around there, or like 3.5 or something like that, where it was like, oh wait, this just got a lot easier all of a sudden. My daughter, Yeah, my daughter is adopted, and we've had her since she was 2.5, and she's been easy, like, from the jump. Um, so I don't know, but the one that came from me took a while to get easy.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious to see how she continues because, like, personality-wise, so far, I mean, she's not even 2 yet, but, like, she already has a very distinctive personality, and she's a mini version of my husband, so I'm like, "Oh, cool." We're gonna see what this develops into. It's just funny to see that. I'm like, "How is she already so much like him?"
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they
so I'm
do,
curious.
they do.
Yeah,
My
sure
son
to
is like a mini Corey.
Oh, really?
He is my husband. And they're so bonded because 'cause they're so like, all their interests align, everything is
Yeah.
the same,
They both
and
love
my daughter
watching.
is the mini me,
Oh,
and,
that's
like, even
awesome.
though she's adopted, I'm like, "This is my" like, obviously, she's mine, like, we are the same person.
The same.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
my mom is always like, "See? That's how you were. See? You gave me such a hard time," and I'm like, "She's fun. I like it."
Yeah, I mean, my mom has been like that with certain things, and she's like, "This is what you did. This is your karma." And I'm like, "Great." I didn't know that I did because I was under 2 years old. Cool. You know? Ah, but it's just
Yeah.
funny, like, they come out with these personalities rearing to go, and it's just really fun to watch how it develops.
That's
Yeah,
interesting. So 4 is the turning point, whether it's a good turning point or a hard turning point.
seems to be 4. Yeah, so we'll see, but so far, she's looking like she's gonna be a hardcore Slytherin baby. She's a very, very cunning child, so
Yeah, it seems to be, like, around that it seems like the chat is confirming that's so there you go, you're not too far away from it.
I'm halfway
That's
there,
cool.
practically
Halfway
halfway there.
there.
So, yeah, you guys will see if, like, I'm infinitely more gray in 2 years, how it's going. So, it'll be interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that little toddler attitude.
That's true. Her little attitude is up, yeah. My son, was a really difficult newborn because he just didn't sleep, but he's been a really easy kid. And my
That's good.
daughter is extremely obedient, but she's also, like, naughty. Like, if she knows she's supposed to do something, she'll do it, but if she knows she can get away with it, then she's like, "Watch
Oh,
me play,"
yeah.
you know?
Oh, yeah. We're in
Which
that
the
phase right
problem
now.
is that I find that funny. So
Oh,
if
yeah, I do too.
she
I laugh.
yeah, exactly. So that's the problem. So it
Yeah.
encourages it because she'll do something not, like, intentionally bad, but not, like, bad, just
Mhm.
naughty. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "You clever girl."
I know. So
How did you
I
pull that off?
cannot laugh. Like we're in this phase right now where we get really frustrated and she hits whatever is closest, or she's got 4 molars coming in, this poor kid, and she'll just bite at something because she's frustrated. And we have an ottoman in our living room, and she got so mad the other day. She just looked at Josh and I like dead in the eye and just went and like whacked the ottoman because she could, because it wasn't a person. And I started laughing because I was like, what sass? Like, oh my gosh, what levels of sass? It was so funny. So yeah, like anytime
Oh
she
my
hits her, we
gosh,
have like
that's so
recourse
fun.
because it's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, there's really no other way to deal with toddlers other than
Oh,
laughing.
yeah, I mean
They're psychopaths otherwise.
and their personalities really do just amplify as they
Yeah.
get older, like, that what you see we look back at videos of my son when he was 2, and he's the same kid, he just couldn't express everything as well, so, like but it's like, that's him, it's still the same.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
daughter, she's like she does a lot of that too with that, like she'll I don't remember what I did the other day, but she looked at me, she's like, "I'm mad about that." And I'm like, "Okay, well, thanks for telling me how you feel." And she goes, "Okay, let's do it, baby." And then she just walked off.
That's hilarious. I love that so much. Oh my gosh. I love when kids just are very flippant with their feelings with you and are just like
Oh, yeah.
no and
Yeah,
are honest. Like I love
yeah,
that. That
yeah.
is
'Cause
so
she
good.
wasn't being disobedient, she was just letting me know, I'm mad about this." And I'm like, "Alright, I'm glad thank you for telling me. We're gonna do it."
Yeah.
She's like, "Alright, let's do it, baby." I will still do it,
One of my best
but I
friends,
am mad.
her son, he has always been he's always just been a super expressive kid. Like came to language really early and has just utilized it always within context and has always been hilarious with it. And when he was like 5, she was having a really rough day and he heard her in the kitchen because their living room is attached basically. And she slammed something down on the counter and he was like, keep it together, mom, like stuff like that. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, oh my gosh, so good. I love when they're like that. It's so funny. I
Yes,
love
they do.
that.
Whatever catchphrase we use to calm them down or to keep them in check or whatever, like it will come right back at us.
Oh yeah. There's no better mirror for you as a human being than a child.
Which the fact that my kids are so cool, man, I must be great.
Killing it. Absolutely killing it.
Just kidding. Yay! We're about to start our final sprint. So, Republican thing! Do you love it? How are you feeling? Are you having a nice time? I'm not excited at all. What do you want to do? We've been chatting for a long time, so we've kind of eaten up a lot of our time.
I want to do like 15, 20 minutes. Do a little bit of a shorter one.
Let's do it, baby.
Cool. Jump back into our projection.
I said I would fix it and put the music on, but I don't think I will. I'm feeling a little bit lazy, so.
Cool. All right. So it's about 3-ish now. So like 3:15.
Boom.
Cool. Okay.
After our last sprint, I came back and said that I'm pretty sure we were going to
Yep.
we were gonna go back.
You're correct.
So how far did you get?
I am on page 26, Catherine in the Unworld.
Nice. Okay, so I didn't actually finish that chapter. I'm still on that chapter. I'm on page 31.
Okay.
So you've just about caught up to me.
Yeah.
It's really good so far, eh?
It is. It's just different.
You're not
right?
liking it?
No, I am.
Oh, okay.
It's just super different. Like I'm really
It's very
curious.
different. I agree.
What keeps throwing me is the ancient Greek stuff. Like there's a lot of ancient Greek stuff being thrown in, and I'm like, why? So I'm curious to see how that comes into play.
Yeah. So you've read this now, so I'm going to quote it because for anyone interested, I'm really, really liking the prose so far.
Yeah, the pros are really good.
This is on page 23, so not very far into the book, and it's not spoilery at all. Consider this paradox, my pitiful one, even dead and captive in my twin prisons. I possess far more freedom and more possibility than you do. You can go where you wish, do as you like, but you can't know you can't know what you are, whereas I, who can't take a single step, have had ample time to study the ways of my own heart. Self-knowledge is a map, and no true journey is possible without it. I just really love the way it's so I don't know. I'm into it.
Her prose is very good. There's been a couple of words that I've been like, what does that mean? Like I've it's rare, I feel like, where I read a book that I'm genuinely like, oh, I need to look up the meaning of that word. But there was one in particular, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head now. I remember it started with a J, but I was like, interesting. So yeah, all in all, I would say I'm really curious.
Yes. I think that's where I am too. I'm highly intrigued by what's going on. It's very different from what I typically read. And so I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let's see where this takes us because it's a little bit wild already.
Yeah, like I said, just mostly curious about these real world references being thrown in.
Yes. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea has like 16 undulations in it. I read that like 2 years ago and we documented all of the undulates and it's terrifying.
Yes,
So
I know
enjoy
Alex
that.
is live streaming too right now. I was told that he's also live streaming.
Oh, is he? Oh no. He's gonna yell at me for streaming at the same time as him.
Well, you started first, so.
Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna wrap up in a minute anyway.
Exactly. But you and I will have to be communicating about our book here.
Yes, I will send you a Voxer probably tomorrow. Talking about A Song of Ice and Fire. Dadgummit! A Court of Thorns and Roses. Can't win with these long titles.
ACOTAR.
It's because I know that you're a big fan of A Song of Ice and Fire, and so it's like there, and then that's what comes out. Whatever.
It's fine. I like most books. So
I'll send you along, talk about that, and then we'll also keep up about this.
That's
Sorry,
fine.
what were
I'm
you
very
saying?
curious about your ACOTAR thing. Sunlit Man narrator said undulate. Oh, geez. Yeah, I didn't realize undulate was such a thing until I started watching your videos, and now it's all I see. It's just everywhere.
I know it is. That's why I scream about it, because no one uses it in the wild, but authors insert it every chance they get. Stop.
But is it all authors or is it just fantasy authors? Because I feel like I don't see it in any other genre other than fantasy. So I don't know.
No, actually, so I first noticed it in a horror novel. And I was like, why is this being used over and over again? This is not a normal word. And then I started reading Sanderson shortly thereafter. And I was like, this guy uses it all the time.
He sure does. It's like his favorite word in the existence of words. I hear you. Yes.
You and me. We're family. We're family.
Yeah,
We've got a lot of ACOTAR lovers in the chat today, so you and me.
I'm fine for it. You guys, just I love it. I'm here for it. I'm having a good time in my romantasy era.
I agree. That is a word that should not show up in romance
Yeah, it
at
should
all.
not.
I have also witnessed it during a spicy scene, and I just nope.
Yep. That is actually a word that has appeared in the ACOTAR world in a spicy scene, and I was like not loving it, but I don't like it anytime though, so I'm not like specifically calling out that scene. I just generally don't like undulate as a word. It's very awkward, and I don't like it in how people say it. I don't like Ken Follett. that works for me as well.
You just said you like most books you read, and then you're like Ken Follett,
do
though.
not like
That's a
Ken
no.
Follett. No. Well, I didn't like what I read of Ken Follett. I don't know. It's one of those things like I can't remember what book it was. You said that you read this author and then you really didn't like that one. And then you went back and you read a different book of theirs and you were like, oh, this is amazing.
Naomi Novik.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, it's hard to just write off an author completely because it just might not be the book for you. It's time to stop undulating. That's right. Once you got 3 peppers involved, time to stop undulating.
Get out of your thesaurus. Stop. Stop doing it.
Exactly. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So Lynn is a mod
Sorry,
on my
Lynn.
Discord
I
and a
know.
friend of mine, and she keeps track. She has a spreadsheet of
Oh,
all the
listen,
undulations that people report.
that's amazing
No.
and a very noble job.
It's a plague on the earth.
It's such a noble job. I commend you immensely. I wonder if
Insane.
I
Anyway,
love 10 Things I
go
Hate
ahead.
About You as a movie. I love it so much. It's a classic rom-com. It's great.
That's not how that works.
Not-
I'm telling you.
That's not wrong. That's not wrong.
Anyway, thanks for joining me for the sprint.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for joining us as well, for reading with us and chatting books. And we will see you some other time.
Have a
Bye.
great weekend, everybody.